All right, we'll get started. So my name's Josh. I am going to be the speaker here today. And as you see on the slide, I'm a personal development coach here at Expium, Valiantis company. And I'm also a Scrum Master, as well as a Myers-Briggs certified facilitator. Before I jump into what we're going to be talking about today, I just want to provide some information about us and who we are and give you a sense of what we do here at Expium. We are a platinum solutions partner with Atlassian, and what that means is that we provide a series of services. The first being training. Jira Bootcamp is our flagship course, which is a 3-day deep dive into Jira, which is perfect for Jira admins and super users. We also have boot camps for Confluence and Jira Service Management. And what I'm particularly excited about is that we now offer workshops geared towards helping your teams work better together and gel. I'll be talking more about those throughout this. Essentially, Valiantis and Expium offer consulting across the entire Atlassian suite of products for a wide range of organizations, both large and small, and their teams. Also, regarding the solutions that we provide, it's important to note that we have an entire team of full stack developers who create custom software. So if something does not exist yet, we can build it. All right, and with that, I'm going to jump into our talk today. Today, what we're going to be talking about is building bonds and trust between your team. And I'm here to offer you creative and out-of-the-box solutions to allow you to do that. So to kick off, I wanted to talk to you about Expium's story. This is Expium. This is our office here in St. Louis, Missouri. So our story begins around the time of the pandemic, when that was beginning. We were starting to realize that the culture that we'd created at our company when we were all together was not really the same as things started going remote and people were drifting off, relationships were atrophying, and all of a sudden people that we were kind of used to seeing frequently were dropping out of our lives. And although we worked with them, there was this sense that we didn't know them the same way that we used to. So theoretically, of course, we had all the technology we needed to communicate with one another, but the conversations that would happen around the lunch table or the water coolers just didn't really have a place to happen. And we had the joy of expanding during that period. And we were hiring new folks from all over the world, but they never had the chance to experience what Expium's culture was. There's this feeling that it wasn't the kind of gelled place where ideas could just be freely exchanged in the same way that it used to be. Things felt more awkward and clunky. So we started to look at what is going to facilitate that kind of smooth relationships and what does it mean to have a truly functional team. So we started to do our research and we looked into a book that we find incredibly useful. Let me pull this up here. The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. This slide is actually from Scaled Agile. The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team is kind of a big book in the agile world, and it's very useful, and it's kind of based on these 5 tiers of possible dysfunctions that a team might have. So we started to kind of look at this and see, well, what's present and what's not in our given teams. So before I go any further, I want to give you the background on what these dysfunctions are, and I want you to think for yourself, as I'm doing this, hypothesize if for your own team any of these things exist. And we're obviously happy to talk about solutions for it. And we'll go into at least one of them today, which is the bottom one, absence of trust. That one's on the bottom of this pyramid because it's very foundational. A lot of the other ones are not accessible without a foundation of trust. A lack of trust can look like a lot of things, but on the whole, it is mostly hiding from other people, hiding what you authentically feel for fear of how it's going to be perceived by others. Basically, an unfree environment of communication where there's a lot of worry and doubt about whether you can or can't say anything. This is an area where politics can really step in and take an effect on a company. The next level is the fear of conflict. So once trust has been established and it's okay to openly share what you think, the next difficult thing is being able to broach conflict scenarios, areas of disagreement, and be able to have thoughtful, practical, ideological debate between different people about what the best course of action is. Essentially, you're leveraging that trust to be able to get a little bit uncomfortable and start to tread into more dangerous territory of conflict. Two people thinking that different approaches are going to work. The advantage of this is that the best ideas start to rise to the top, and you get more buy-in, which is the next one, lack of commitment, more buy-in once people are authentically invested and feel that their own voice has been heard in the discussion. They might not fully agree with the team's choice to move forward in the way that they do, and because they've been heard, it's much easier to commit and say all right, they got me. So next one is a lack of commitment, which is just moving from that conflict to a space where we can all openly say this is what we're going to do and truly believe that that's what we're going to do. After that is avoidance of accountability. It can be hard to hold people accountable, especially people that you like or that are coworkers, in a way that you truly feel close or connected to. And so, or maybe they're at a slightly different rank or position, and it becomes difficult to hold them accountable for the things that the team has committed to. But with that commitment in place, it's easier to point to this is what we said we would do and hold people to account for it. It can be uncomfortable, but it does ultimately create the best results because then everybody is truly rowing in the same direction. Finally, an inattention to results, which is really just going off feeling more than actual results. So that basically comes down to tracking very particular things, having a set, like a scoreboard, like you would see in a football game or a baseball game. You want to be able to see those results and make them public and track your progress by that, not by anything of well, it feels like I'm doing well, or my particular division is doing well. I don't know about the rest of the company. So these were some of the things that we started to look at. And we're going to talk today mostly about a lack of trust. What's great about this book is that it is actually not told in a way where it's just explaining a theory to you throughout the course of it, but rather it is a fable. It is a story of an executive team that has all of these dysfunctions going on at the front of it, although none of it's explicitly told. It's really told kind of as a story, and it's about a CEO named Catherine who takes over this executive team and slowly brings them into line. And there's this awesome quote from her at the beginning of the book when she does the first team offsite with the group that I want to read for you all here. So she's addressing the boardroom. We have a more experienced and talented executive team than any of our competitors. We have more cash than they do. Thanks to Martin and his team, we have better core technology. And we have a more powerful board of directors. Yet in spite of all of that, we are behind two of our competitors in terms of both revenue and customer growth. Can anyone here tell me why that is? Silence. Teamwork is the ultimate competitive advantage. Many teams are not able to truly leverage teamwork because they're afraid of the discomfort that it might cause to get vulnerable with their other teammates, and they're afraid to truly air their opinions for fear of losing their job or being poorly perceived. And a lot of this has to do with the environment. But so long as there is a thoughtful team and a thoughtful company culture, it can become a place where it's okay for people to share that, and that base of trust can exist, and all of those other dysfunctions can kind of fall like dominoes as that is accomplished. So the advantages of teamwork are huge, and I think in many ways self-evident, but I want to outline a couple of them to make it really clear. With real teamwork, a group can build on each other's ideas. They can leverage each other's strengths. They can benefit from each other's open and honest dialogue. And the investment of the team can truly be there. There's this sense that the team's needs and its goals are more important than the individual success or career options of the person. There's a feeling that what the group is doing is better for the ultimate fulfillment of the company, the world, and the sense of purpose can develop, which creates a highly motivated team. There's also a sense that people are going to catch each other for their mistakes, so there's a sense of trust and fill in for each other's weaknesses. If everyone on the team has a different set of strengths and weaknesses, you want to make sure that it's clear where those are and come in to support in the areas where the team might be lacking, or there might be a tendency to avoid certain topics or areas that the team is not as well equipped to deal with. It's a way of kind of coming together to meet the parts that would be sort of under the radar. Another thing that comes from this is people can truly do the work that they love and exist in their zone of genius. With genuine teamwork, you're looking for what makes each person unique and being able to put them in the space where they can really leverage that and have that come to life for themselves. So that is, on the whole, the competitive advantage that comes from having real teamwork, investment in the company, and people being fulfilled in their roles. Also results in lower turnover because people are genuinely fulfilled by what they're doing and recognized for it as well. That recognition is really key. All right, let's talk about a lack of trust. What does this look like? I want you to be able to identify this if it does show up. You'll know it when a lack of trust exists because something kind of goes off in most people's emotional radar when there's something amiss in a relationship, some sort of tension, usually an unspoken one. So I'm going to use a story to talk about it. This is the story of a senior consultant and a new consultant at a company. They're both coming together and going over the duties they need to accomplish for a client. The senior consultant is laying out everything. The junior consultant, they're divvying things up. The junior consultant is afraid of not doing enough, and so takes on as much as the senior consultant gives them, and maybe with some worry or stress about whether or not they can accomplish it, but they say yes and take it on. Senior consultant says, great, I'll see you there. We want this done by 2 o'clock tomorrow or the end of the week. The time finally comes and certain items are not completed. The senior consultant gets angry. Why is this person not getting things to me? Are they lazy? Do they not know that the client needs this at a certain time? And with that anger and frustration might come a couple of different responses. They may go to the person the junior consultant, and like give them a hard time for it and make sure they know that they messed up, which will possibly damage the relationship between the two of them. Or the senior consultant might withdraw and just end up trusting the other person less without any explanation. What I see as the core thing in this lack of trust story is unspoken expectations, where the junior consultant might not even be aware of what is causing their seniors like hard feelings or anger, and they also weren't aware beforehand that their actions would have this kind of an impact, and maybe they didn't even feel totally comfortable saying that, hey, I'm not sure if I can handle all this. As a senior consultant, there might be anxiety about being able to get products to the customer at the time that's expected. And it's just being able to clearly communicate, hey, so I have anxiety if all of these things are not done by 2 o'clock on Friday. I think it's really important to do that for our bottom line. If there's anything that you don't think that you can accomplish here, please just let me know. I'll take it off your plate, or I'll find someone else who can handle it, because I just want to make sure that this is done in the way that I expect it to be. And with that, beforehand, they're setting the other person up for success in the relationship. They're giving the new consultant space to learn and go over what they need to, and also to take on as much as they can to meet the expectations of the client and the senior consultant. So essentially saying, this is something that I have, can you help me bridge this gap? Now, trust is really formed when we can be authentic and vulnerable about these things, either our inability to meet the needs that are requested of us or the expectations that we have. But the key thing is that it's really solidified when we are met with understanding after we express it. So if I say, I'm not sure that I can do this, and here's why, that the other person can say, oh, okay, I didn't know that that's what you needed. Of course, let's see how we can work with this, because nothing actually builds trust more than the other person understanding our needs and meeting them. It's really simple, but it's key. And as a manager, you need to dig sometimes, because you won't always know off the bat what's actually going on with the other participant if you don't ask, and likewise on the other side, being able to be brave enough to bring up concerns that might exist. So all that says, I'm sure that sounds great and everything, but it's not as simple as all of that. Communicating these things with our coworkers is difficult to do, even though it is rewarding. So we've isolated a couple of problems that tend to come up with this, which is one, it can just be difficult to know how to talk about these things. And two, we aren't even necessarily aware of what we prefer or don't prefer, or where we're at, or what's driving things. So our solution to that was to give people a language to talk about their differences, which is where we come to the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator. Some of you might know about the Myers-Briggs, so feel free to kind of message in the chat and let us know if you've used it before and what your impression of it is, because I've certainly known it for a lot of my life, but it was only after being certified in what it is that I feel that a deeper understanding has come in terms of what the actual application of this is. So if you had an experience with this before where it seemed inaccurate or weird, feel free to share that too, because that's equally valid. So Myers-Briggs comes from two women, Myers-Briggs, who were alive in the 1940s, basically the 20th century, and they based their work off of Carl Jung, who's a prominent psychotherapist from the 1800s, early 1900s. And Carl Jung had this belief, he believed a lot of things like the collective unconscious and what it takes to create fulfillment in life, that there are certain archetypes that exist within humanity, and that belief that these archetypes exist within humanity was what kind of drove the theory later on. He believed that the differences between people are not random, and instead they fall into different patterns or types. So that which exists between different folks can be more deeply understood by digging into what the patterns of behavior that they show are and understanding what those patterns are, so that people can self-identify as like, oh, that's kind of my pattern, or this is my pattern. And through that self-knowing, have more productive relationships and a more fulfilling life. So the Myers-Briggs comes down to these four preference pairs. You can see them all laid out here: extroversion, introversion, sensing and intuition, thinking and feeling, judging and perceiving. And each one goes into a certain aspect of personality. How do you like to direct and receive energy? How do you take in information about the world around you? How do you decide and come to conclusions? And how do you like to approach the world around you when it comes to planning or making your daily choices? So with these four distinctions, you come up with a type, say extroverted, intuitive, feeling, and perceiving, and then you get a type out of that, ENFP. And that's the idea. Now, what we discovered that we can do differently with this is lead our clients and our team members through a feedback session, which is a one-on-one or one-on-a-group session where either an individual or a team works with a facilitator, and that facilitator walks them through what each of these 8 distinctions means and lets people identify for themselves which one they feel like is most accurate. This self-description is really important. It's not about a test telling you who you are, but rather you feeling that you know how to express who you are through going through this session with a facilitator. And with that, you don't just get a result printed out and then walk away like that's the end of it, this is who I am, great. But rather, you begin a conversation that you can then continue to have with others about who you are and how you work best and how you tend to approach the world and how others can speak with you and reason with you, the kinds of ways they can win you over or potentially alienate you. So it's that conversation that we find is really the key, more than just a static result. So the way it works, if you do work in a feedback session with us, at the beginning, everybody takes the indicator, which is a test. Then you'll meet with the facilitator and receive a background on the theory. Then you'll go through a group feedback session where the facilitator will break down what the 4 different distinctions mean. Then throughout the process, you'll leverage breakout rooms and paired sharing so people can get to know each other a little bit more deeply in, kind of one-on-one. Then at the very end of the feedback session, you'll receive your indicator results. So we'll show you what the indicator showed that you are versus what you've discovered that you are throughout the course of the session. And then you will choose your best fit type. Basically, look at what the indicator said, look at what you came up with, and decide for yourself, well, this one sounds more like me. After that, you'll receive a breakdown sheet of what that means, and then critically have a discussion as a group to talk about takeaways and how this could change things on your team, potentially even creating a brand new working agreement with your team to find ways to best leverage the strengths of everyone's individual personalities. So I thought it would be fun if we did one of these exercises right now. So I'm going to ask you right now to think for yourself which one of these applies to you as I go through that. This is kind of what would happen in a feedback session. So as I'm describing this, your only job right now is to sit back and hypothesize for yourself which one sounds more like. To be clear, everyone does both. Nobody is limited, and also our preferences can change over time. Who we were as kids is not who we are now. But just kind of listen to your intuition and think about your day-to-day life at work, which one sounds like it is more you. So on the left, we have extroversion. Extroverts tend to act before thinking, be very comfortable just jumping into a situation. They also prefer to take action quickly, basically do first, then reflect on it, then do again. Whereas the introvert is going to be more likely to reflect on something, then take action, and then go back into reflection again, because reflection is the preferred space of the introvert. The inner world is what matters the most to someone who prefers introversion. And that space of reflection is where they're going to have the most facility, the most power, the most competency. That's where they're going to feel the most comfortable and in control. And that's why they'll tend to prefer to spend time on reflection and prefer to really think things through, and might be more contained when interacting because they're largely interacting with kind of an inner world of thoughts and ideas and ways things fit together. This is a very powerful thing for a person, but it also means that it might be draining to have to communicate that inner world to other people and get them kind of on board with you. So not to say introverts don't like meetings, but I think they would prefer meetings that are direct and to the point and involve like a focus on the topic that the introvert has taken time, or the person who prefers introversion has taken time to closely and carefully consider and reflect on, and thus what they want to speak on. They also, because of this, tend to be very deep in terms of what they're interested in. In contrast, the extrovert likes a meeting where they can get to know people and open up throughout the course of it. They like to be able to read people's body posture or motion or what they're doing and kind of play off the energy that they're given. Also, they'll talk things through. There's this thing with introverts, extroverts that I kind of love of like, wow, I didn't know that I thought that until I started talking. And then at the end of that, you know, they'll sort of discover things through conversation. Kind of like my mouth moves faster than my brain. They'll be more expressive if you're someone who prefers extroversion, and gain energy from interaction. So a productive meeting that goes all over the place or that just really is stimulating is going to be great for an extrovert. They're going to come out of that feeling like really enlivened and ready to go. And they'll have a breadth of interest. They'll want to have their hand in a lot of different things. Lastly, to be clear, those who prefer introversion are not less socially confident than those who prefer extroversion. It's perfectly possible to be socially confident and introverted at the same time. It just means that you're going to be more reserved and you're going to be comfortable being reserved like that. So that's that. I would like anyone who feels comfortable to share with us in the chat what your preference is and why you think that's the case for yourself. This is kind of the beginning of the interesting conversation of preference that exists. So yeah, go ahead and share with us. And if it's okay for us to share with that with the group, let us know. Or if you don't want us to share it with the group, don't let us know. But I like going in the Q&A and talking about that stuff because I think that that's actually a really, it's a deep thing, and it's the beginning of the conversation that we'll tend to have in these sessions. I just want to talk a little bit more about the value that I see people have through the course of doing this. I'm a Scrum Master and I work with a team. And with my team, after we went through the extroversion and introversion things, I had one team member who had been fairly shy and reserved about communicating, and from time to time in one-on-ones had expressed that she didn't feel like she was really a part of the team. And through this, she got the confidence to share with the group that she's really introverted and she has a tough time being able to speak up. And when she said this, I think everybody kind of listened in. They sort of leaned into what she had to say. And she told us that she has things that she wants to contribute, but she often finds that she doesn't have the space to share it, and conversations start to move too fast for her. And she said that that led her to experiencing frustration in the meetings, and she ultimately felt like her voice didn't matter as much, and so she would shut down, and that's what was going on. And when she shared that, the whole team was kind of like blown away. And at the same time, I also saw them come together and tell her, like, no, like, we want to support you. We want to, like, we're so sorry. We never wanted to do that. We didn't know. And I could see that my teammate here was really touched, because I don't think she expected necessarily for them to come around and have that response. And we ultimately added to our working agreement, because she has this need to check in and ensure that our contributions are heard, just that we would make time and do that. And often it added only a couple of minutes to the meeting, just to make sure that we would check in on her. But to be perfectly honest, like, her contributions are some of the best that I see on my team. And the fact that she feels free and, empowered to share those contributions now and know that the team's really got her back, huge, totally priceless, absolutely worth the time and investment. So yeah, I wanted to share that. Let's see. Yeah, at the end of the day, it all comes down to understanding, because then we can properly attribute people's behavior and we can feel understood. We don't have to make assumptions about maybe this person doesn't like us or whatever that can get in the way of genuine trust. And really, it's just made life on the team a lot easier. The relationships are stronger and everyone's on the same page. So that is the Myers-Briggs tool. Incredibly useful. We'll have our information at the end if you want to schedule a one-on-one with us at any point. So let's talk about our last one. This is kind of a weird one, but it's really close to my heart and has been wonderful to explore. So role-playing games. This is similar to Dungeons and Dragons. If you guys have ever heard of it, I know there's the new movie that just came out, which was stellar. Just saying, sorry, personal opinion. This is tabletop role-playing games, which is one of our most popular tools within the company for bringing people together. You know who also loves Dungeons and Dragons? These people. All these guys play Dungeons and Dragons, guys and gal. Vin Diesel has a live YouTube where you can find him playing. So does Kevin Smith and Stephen Colbert. And it's a really popular storytelling game. There's a couple of actors and writers here, and that's really telling, because it is essentially more of a storytelling game than just a traditional board game. It's not Settlers of Catan, it's something more. We've used it for onboarding and a number of other purposes, and it's just been phenomenal in terms of the feedback that we got. I'll just talk about a couple of these. I've known him for 10 years and still learn new things about my friend. We have two workers who've been together actually through multiple companies, but are now here working at Expium. And one of them expressed that she's known him for 10 years and was still learning new things about him. She specifically discovered kind of a love of history that he has within the course of the game, and enjoyed that deepened her relationship with him. They felt closer and started to talk more after they played. Let's see. What else? Our team had a positive experience. They've learned a lot more about their team and working as a team to accomplish one mission. This was from a group that we were running for that was one of the newer participants on the team, and he felt a little bit shyer throughout the course of play. And after the first, no, I think it was his second session, contributing, I could feel that he had developed a level of acceptance by the team that I don't think was there beforehand. He seemed to feel sort of nervous, and he learned that he could speak up. And I think a lot of that was because the character that he was playing was very empowered, very strong, very devoted. And he felt that that was kind of a part of himself as well, and shared that with the group. And they learned that he's someone that they can count on, someone who's devoted, wants to be there for people no matter what the cost. And that was where they learned who he really was, and that built trust on the team. And I think a sense for him that he was a part of it as well. So yeah, we use it for onboarding, but a couple of other things. It's a great way to bring different departments together who wouldn't normally interact and build those relationships that just have the potential of existing. So this experience is a storytelling game. Storytelling in and of itself is a really ancient human art. There's a need for storytelling. It puts our actions in a larger context. It lets us feel like we're a part of something. It takes us out of ourselves, and at the same time talks about ourselves in a way it's truer than real life. Like there's this feeling of truth to a good story, that it resonates, it makes you cry, it makes you laugh, what have you. So the game is played where there's one person who is a lead storyteller, which is a game master, and then everybody else who has a character that they take on throughout the course of the game. And each character is tailored to them, and they get to sort of adapt, and their responsibility is to act as those characters do in the story and make their decisions for them. Whereas the facilitator's job is just to create the world and tell them where they are and explain the context and the circumstances, and allow them to contribute and make decisions. The best analogy that I've heard for this is that it's like a choose your own adventure book, where you as the player get to decide, do I want to go into the attic or do I want to go in the basement? But unlike the adventure book where you have to decide either, okay, well, I'll turn to this page and go to the attic, or I'll turn to this page and go to the basement. There's the game master, the facilitator. You can just tell them what you want to do or where you want to go. And in that sense, your options are much more broad and are much more open, and their job is just to respond and tell you what happens as you make these different decisions. So it's kind of this push and pull of like action and consequence, and action and consequence. And the game master will set up a scenario for the players to work their way out of and overcome throughout the course of playing together. So what I really love about this is how players can offer me as the facilitator things about their characters, and then I can use those in the narrative. I can take things that they've created and use that to kind of build out the world that we're telling together. In a sense, each story is built by the group that creates it. And while the game master might have a framework, the group is self-directed and gets to say what they want to do and how they want to approach it, while still being guided. Again, like a lot of the skills that I use as a Scrum Master come into play here a lot. And it is truly about motivating your team and bringing the most out of them and finding who is suited to what, as well as what people's kind of natural inclinations are. The result ends up being this story that we all create together. And what's nice is it also gets everyone to really actively listen. It's this free-form conversation, so it's both open and it's guided, and people are passing the ball of the conversation back and forth. So while I might step in from time to time to make sure that if someone hasn't spoken for a while that they can contribute, it has that sort of same sense of free flow. And you can see how open a group is to communicating and how much trust there actually is on a team, really by how well they tell this story together. And it's easy then to reflect on areas that can be improved and things like that. So the role of a player is to be a hero. Their job is to make a character they believe in and that they're excited about. This is great because it gets you as the leader some insight into who this person is and what lights them up. When people create a character, I often think in my head, all right, I want you to tell me something about yourself without actually telling me about yourself. Because they're given these characters that have some sort of bare bones about who they are, and then they get to embellish and add things onto them. And very quickly, what becomes important to the person, whether it be community or their animals or excellence, like personal excellence, or watching out for the bottom line, whatever that is that really matters to that person, starts to become really evident in the stories that they tell and the characters that they create and are drawn to. I mean, think about it. We all have favorite characters in movies and television. Sometimes it's because we want to be like them, and sometimes it's because we feel like we are like them. I was like in love with Seth Rogen when I was younger because I was like, that's me in 20 years. So there's this sense that the players make these heroes, but they tell me who they are and they tell me what they care about. And then my role is just to take them and give them a chance to sort of actualize a hero's journey. What are some dangerous situations they can overcome? How can they prevent things from getting from bad to worse? There's going to be a set of logical consequences in this story that are going to propel the action forward. And so how are their decisions going to affect that? Are there going to be different endings based on how well or poorly they're able to perform against the challenges that I set against them? Will they really overcome what's holding them back? Because it's up to them, the heroes, how they want to handle the dangerous situations I present them. It's very much their own unique story because they're deciding what to engage with and how to engage with it based on the problems that I'll put out in front of them. So I often say that it is like you, but it's one step removed. And this was a quote that I want to read from someone who participated in our games just last week. She said, I enjoyed the fact that I was able to put myself in my character's shoes. Even though there's a lot of storytelling involved in the development of each character, I think our own personalities are meshed into it. My character really resonates to who I am, and it was nice that everyone on the team supported that and accepted me. It's a big deal. That sense of acceptance is going to drive that person to really want to perform for that team and feel that they can show up at work and be themselves. It's a human need and it's very strong. And when it is fulfilled, you'll be amazed at the amount of commitment that you get out of folks. So let's see here. Okay. An example of an adventure that I would send people on that they would then have to tackle as their heroes, I'll present the situation to them and see how they want to respond. And it's key that it's both directed and open-ended so that they as the heroes can come in and solve the problem in a way where there's not one right solution, but there are still, it's a complex problem. Like many of the problems that we deal with at work, there is, say, an epic or a story that we're working to achieve, an end goal that we know we want to do, but the process of how we get there is incredibly important and involves discussion and conversation to be able to get to that point. So I'm there watching and helping facilitate these teams be able to get to that point in this thing and watching, are they having the thoughtful discussions to be able to work towards solving this complex and open-ended problem. So an example of one of those problems is an adventure that I call the River of Vengeance. And in this story, the group all play a set of military, like a military squad in kind of like a Roman legion fantasy mercenary army. And they're on a jungle, like a large unexplored jungle continent. That's the setting. And in the very first scene, all the heroes are called together by the high commander of the forces here, who lets them know that the reason these forces are here is so that the mercenary company can make money from the resources here on this land, period. We are here to make money, find things that we can sell back home, and we'll do whatever it takes to be able to do that. She then goes on to explain that one of the company's commanders was sent up the river, deep into the jungle, to find a diamond mine, and has been up there with a large group of troops for over a year, and so far has not returned any sense of, like, there's no evidence that diamonds have been found, and no sense that commander is using their troops appropriately, and they won't be called in to be held accountable at high command. So your job is to head up the river and figure out what's going on and what kind of action we should take. So this is interesting because it starts to prompt questions in the hero's mind. Who is this person? Where do they come from? If we're going to go up the river, what's the best path? What might this person be like when we finally meet them? What could actually be going on there? And starting to ask these questions and build out the world and start to ask, create what might be going on and ultimately formulate a plan of how they want to approach it. So that is basically how one of these is structured, but we have a number of different adventures and settings, and so you'll just work with your facilitator on which one sounds the most exciting to you and which one might work for your team's particular preferences. This experience can also be really fun because it is contained in an imaginary space. It's a storytelling game, so people can take big risks and they can fail forward, and it's a place where they can start to learn to embrace each other when they fail and know that your team has got your back, and also take bigger risks than you would, because even though there are consequences, the consequences are not ultimately felt outside of the game world. So that is it. I just want to walk you through what a typical session for one of these looks like if you're interested in booking one. So you'll schedule your sessions with us, likely after meeting with someone for a one-on-one talk about your team. And then your players will receive their packages. We have a handful of kind of pre-game packages that are sent out to each player. And there's a little box that has snacks for your adventure. It has a set of dice like the ones that you see there. It has maps and other important tools you might need for going on this adventure. And it has a personalized note that you as the manager can send out as kind of like a way to thank your team. Then when we finally meet, we do introductions. I'll set up the working agreement with everyone. I'll go over the role-playing game and the mechanics. And I'll give you an introduction to the plot or the story that they'll be going on for that particular day. Then we'll do some character building where people have a chance to create their characters. And then I'll do a slightly deeper dive into the game mechanics. And after that, it'll be 3 sessions, usually 3 to 5, depending on kind of what you prefer. And each one of those is a half-day exercise and involves character work, playing together, and then a retrospective on how the game actually went. It's possible to do these with a single game. I also recommend that if you just want to try and get a sense for what these are. And you can do a shorter storyline that is wrapped up in a single half-day experience. So that's also an option for you. At the end of however many sessions you do with us, we do a team lead retrospective and recommendations on what kind of we saw come out of the various players and what it sounds like might be the best way to leverage your team for the most success. And we might use the 5 dysfunctions and other tools and kind of go back to that and talk about kind of what might be missing to improve your team's cohesion and what I and you saw was particularly exceptional, like what things your team does very well. So that's it, guys. Thank you all for coming and attending this webinar. I just want to say one more time, we are Expium, a Valiantis company. We have a couple of flagship products. We're an Atlassian solutions partner, Platinum solutions partner. And we offer trainings in Jira Bootcamp, which is our flagship service. And it's kind of a 3-day deep dive into Jira, perfect for Jira admins and users. And we also have boot camps for Confluence, Jira Service Management. And we do consulting on how to best implement Jira tools. And lastly, we do have our own team of full stack developers who create custom software. So we can fill any of your needs that you have in that department. All right. Oh, this, I believe, needs to be updated. Let's see. No, this is still fairly accurate. Good. So you can see here we have coming up in April, project portfolio management, an introduction to Confluence, Jira Bootcamp, and a Confluence Bootcamp, as well as an introduction to Jira Align. So all of these are coming up in April, and we have a handful more in May. Let me show you how to get there. So if you go and type in expium.com, expium.com, you can get here. Let's make that a little bigger. And what you want to do is go to the top and click on trainings. And you can see here, all these blue ones are ones that are free to attend. And here are paid classes where you can get tickets or set up one for your team. And at the bottom of the trainings tab here, we have all the upcoming events. You can see we have them going out to the end of May here as well. So that's it. Here's some of our lovely team. How handsome. Okay, wonderful. Jump back in here. Let's see if there are any questions in the Q&A, and we can go ahead and check in on that. All right, doesn't look like we have any questions today. So with that, I think that's the end of it. You can see there's a link here to our custom team building experiences if you want to book one for yourself. And yeah, that's my email in the chat. There's also a link here to my LinkedIn, which I would love it if you guys visited. Feel free to connect, and we can talk more about these things. And yeah, thank you so much for participating, everyone. We really appreciate having you here, and we look forward to hearing from you in the future.